There's so many things in. Hi, you're just right on time. I just started about 2 seconds ago. There's so many times in my life where I've had a moment come to me. It was kind of like what my grandfather would say, my come to Jesus moment, where all of a sudden you get it, you got it figured out, but you had to go through a whole bunch of muddy water to get there. And I just want to open it up and just ask, okay, is there something in your life that you finally figured out, and you're looking back, you go, if I only would have known this sooner, it would have changed everything. Can anyone think of anything that wants to share? If you don't want to share, it's fine, but... Can anyone think of anything? Deanna? Well, yeah, obviously. Because that's where I'm going with this. You guys know that.
You did? You wish you would have done this sooner?
Yes, I do.
Of course.
Yeah, for me, I think I've shared with everybody in here that I had an issue that I dealt with for 15 years before I met Dr. Avery Ashley. Yeah. And nobody ever did anything to really get anywhere with it. And for the first time ever, I'm virtually pain-free.
Yeah.
In 15 years.
There could be a million things. Okay, let me just give you an example, because that's a picture of my baby. So I asked some of my more experienced patients that have been on this planet for much longer than I have, my 80-year-olds and beyond. Did you guys ride in a car seat when you were a baby? And they're like, no. You have car seats back then? I'm like, well, how'd you get around? And they're like, you just sat on mom and dad's lap as they drove down the road. Now what would happen if I drove home without my baby in the car seat? Bad news. Okay? It's just one of those things. Like, once you know that you have to do it. Okay? So here's a cool story. Bill, I was thinking about you. And when you walked in, I'm like, Bill's going to love this story. Okay? You guys know my research articles. Okay? So this is obviously about chiropractic. And I thought it would be nice to share this. This is going way back, from 1921. Okay? So the story goes like this. In 1919 and in 1920, there was a world flu pandemic where millions and millions of people died all over the world. Okay, maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. And always they go back to this. Like right now it's flu season. So I just heard this the other day. Someone was saying, the 1919 flu wiped out millions and millions of people around the world. Chiropractors had a really good success rate with the flu in 1919. Okay, in Davenport, Iowa, where chiropractic was developed, there were, of course, lots of patients who were suffering from the flu of 1919, 1920, and lots of them went the medical route, and lots of them went to seek care from their chiropractors. The chiropractic group in Davenport, Iowa, the Palmer School of Chiropractic, had one patient die. Okay, the medical doctors and I'm not ripping on them, I'm just saying different treatments. The medical doctors, I believe, had 57 deaths. Okay, so there was this stir going around, and people were traveling from all over the country to go to Davenport, Iowa, who had the flu, to meet these doctors who were treating the flu. It was spreading around the country, and they get there, and it's a bunch of chiropractors adjusting them, monitoring, watching them. They lost one person from the flu during that whole pandemic. Okay. Well, the American Medical Association wanted to figure out what was going on, because there's all these people traveling to Davenport, Iowa. Nobody ever heard of Davenport, Iowa. Traveling to Davenport, Iowa to get adjusted by these chiropractors. So the Medical Association was going, hey, what is going on here? So they commissioned a doctor to travel to Davenport, Iowa, and his job was to figure out what these chiropractors were doing, and if he couldn't prove that what they were doing was ethical and effective, we're going to shut these chiropractors down. Okay? So let me read you this. In the early 1920s, a medical doctor by the name of Henry Windsor, you can look it up, caught word of chiropractic and was commissioned to travel to Davenport, Iowa, to experience the significant health benefits with problems seemingly unrelated to the spine. So why would you go to your chiropractor if you have the flu? So the American Medical Association commissioned him. They said, I don't know what's going on, but figure out what's going on with this situation. He began his own research. He got access and permission to dissect and analyze 50 human cadavers. Now, this is a big deal, okay? To get 50 human cadavers is not an easy thing to do, okay? The school, the Palmer's chiropractic school, they had a hard time. One time they had the largest osteological bone library in the country, chiropractors in Davenport, Iowa. Okay, so we're getting all these bones. Now it's illegal to have human bones, okay? So at the time, he got 50 human cadavers. His findings sent shockwaves throughout the medical profession. Not only did Dr. Windsor find a link between health of the spine and function of organs, he noted a direct correlation between the recorded diseased organs and the alignment of the spine in that area. So out of the 221 diseased organs, he found a link in 212 of the organs directly relating back to the same segmental spinal level of the nervous system that the diseased organ was found in. Let me put this in English. He got a bunch of spines, and he read the death report or the autopsy report, and it said, this guy died of liver disease, this guy died of cardiovascular disease, this woman died of brain cancer. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And he had the reports. And he dissected all of those cadavers, 50 of them, and he went to the diseased organ. He found the nerve root, like I teach you guys, and he traced the nerve root back to the spine, and he studied the spine right around where that nerve root came out. Okay? Of the 50 humans, there was 221 of those 50 cadavers, 221 diseased organs. So some people, you might have 3 diseased organs, you might have had 1, you might have had 4. So you found 221 diseased organs, 212 out of the 221, he found degenerative nerve interference at the spinal level. And he made this report in 1921. He went back to the medical doctors who commissioned him to go there and basically shut down chiropractic, and he's like, what they're doing is right. He goes, they're onto something. Okay, and maybe you know this story, maybe you don't, but later on, what happened was that the AMA tried to shut down chiropractic, and they formed a suit against chiropractors for practicing medicine without a license. And chiropractors said, we don't practice medicine. We're just trying to work on these nerves and keep the brain communicating with the body. And they were jailing chiropractors, putting chiropractors in jail until the 70s. Not that long ago, I met a guy who had been in jail 3 times. He practiced in the state of Louisiana. It was the last state to approve the practice of chiropractic in the 70s. He had been in jail 3 times for doing what I do every single day to you folks. Right? This is crazy. This is wild stuff. Okay, it wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s that the chiropractors won the suit against the AMA. The only profession to ever win in the federal court of law against the American Medical Association was chiropractors. They said, what we're doing is right, what we're doing is helping save lives, and we're not practicing medicine. But it wasn't until the late 70s and into the 80s that suit got cleared up, right? So I bring that story up to you so that every time I come into the office, I live with that. I'm like, this matters, right? These people went to jail so that you could get your adjustments. It's 100% true. Went to jail, okay? And what we do really matters. It matters so much that they tried to shut it down. And that's exactly why they tried to do it, because it was working and it's effective, and we can take care of you guys without having to give you drugs and surgery, okay? So the story kind of evolves from there, and then we get to today. I want to really briefly walk you through this wellness paradigm. I say it's like a house. Okay, so there's 3 pillars for health that we live by, and the first pillar is eat well. Okay, and I always try to tell people, you could have perfect chiropractic care, and you could eat really, really poorly, and you're going to have some diseased organs. Would you agree?
Yes.
And lots of times my patients come in here, and we forget that. Okay, you can't exercise off a bad diet. All right, I just heard this today. I was listening to my podcast like I always do in the morning. I just heard this today that the half-life of a McDonald's French fry grease, okay, the half-life was 50 days, I believe. It could be a little bit off. But anyway, 50 days after you eat the French fries out of that grease pan, in 50 days, half of it's still in your system. you imagine if you ate that nasty grease every single day, like lots of Americans do, lined up? I mean, I just drove by the McDonald's over by Costco. They're building a new McDonald's there. I made this funny, like, we drove by Costco last weekend, and I was like, oh, honey, I've never in my life seen a McDonald's go out of business. Have you? Never. And I'm like, honey, the McDonald's is going out of business. They had it all shut down, and I don't know if you saw this. And she's like, no way. And I'm going, yeah, look, it's closed. They're doing an addition. They're like retrofitting the whole place. It's going to be like the Taj Mahal of McDonald's. I was like, oh, obviously. Okay, so eat well. And the problem is deeper because lots of times we eat things that we think are good for us, and later we find out that, oh my goodness, they're super, super bad for us. Okay, talk about doing one thing thinking it's good for you, and then later finding out, if I only would have known this sooner. All right, so one day the Cancer and Heart Association says that, fat's killing you. The next day they say it's good for you, and then, I watched the movie. It's just insane. Okay, I tell people eggs are good for you, and then they're like, well, the Heart Association says that eggs are going to kill me. Who do I believe? And I say, believe me. I actually know you and love you and care about you. I mean, that's how I talk to my patients. I'm like, I know you. They don't know you. They got no interest in helping you. Okay? So eat well. It's the eat well paradigm. I tell people, general rule of thumb, here's the way I live my life. Okay? If my family and I live my life like this, then it's good enough for me to share with my patients. Okay? I go on and off of what's called a keto lifestyle, where I train my body to run on fat. It's a really, really good thing. Okay? If you can get your body running on fat instead of sugar, your life is going to change. Our body is designed to run on sugar and fat. Think of feast and famine. So, for thousands of years, right? Science tells us over 40,000 years the human genome has not changed. I don't care if you believe in evolution or you believe in creation, whatever. But science tells us the human genome has not changed for over 40,000 years. So, for the past 40,000 years, we didn't have a refrigerator that we went to and just had endless supply of whatever we want. Okay? During the year, we would have the buffalo would come through the prairie, and we'd shoot a buffalo. And guess what we'd eat for the next month? Buffalo. And then the buffalo would move on, and we'd run out of buffalo. And then we'd go into a famine state where we would have virtually very little to eat. Think about the Indians from Central Oregon. Feast and famine all the time. And during the famine cycles, the body would run on fat and reserves. They might not eat for a week. They might not eat for 10 days. Humans. Not eating for that long. And the body would renew itself as it would go from running on sugar. And in the springtime, we'd have nuts and berries, and we'd have all this crazy good stuff available to us, a lot of high sugar stuff coming from the earth. And then all of a sudden, fall time comes, we're storing up, getting it all in, then it's gone. You might not have anything that contains any sugar for 4 or 5 months. Okay? I eat the keto lifestyle, and I cycle on and off of it. I teach my patients to do this during my detox classes that happen once a month on a Thursday. So if you want to know more, you got to come to class this Thursday for that. Alkaline lifestyle. You know about alkalinity? Our body has to have a certain pH. You go out to the hot tub, you check the pH. Oh, if it's too hot, if it's getting too low, you put some you put some chemicals or baking soda or something in it, right? To some alkalinity, balance it out. You're playing with the pH a little bit. Your body's the same way. If the pH gets slightly off, it can cause some nasty diseases in the system. Low carb, low sugar lifestyle. I almost always try to be low carb, low sugar. I'll go on periods of time where I'll be like the Indians. I'll feast. I may have a week where I eat lots of carbs, and then I might not eat any, extremely low carbs, no sugar for 2 months. And then I'll go back in. I'll have my feast. So I teach this to my patients. Paleo lifestyle. You guys have heard that? There's a magazine called Paleo. It's in Bend. The headquarters is in the old mill. It basically, what that is, I'll sum it up for you. Eat like our ancestors did. Our ancestors didn't have microwave ovens, and they didn't have all this stuff coming from all over the world. Eat local and eat what's healthy and in season. Combining foods. I teach this in some of my energy classes when I do my corporate talks. Here's the principle behind combining foods. Do a little Google search. You'll be blown away. Okay? I come from the Midwest. And in the Midwest, what do we eat? Steak and potatoes. Okay? It's almost impossible for the body to break down a high starch and a high protein at the same time, because the body needs different enzymes to break those two things down. So when I have my steak and potatoes and I go to bed, or my pasta and my meatballs, a starch and a protein, the body, the digestive system is going to war against itself. It's trying to put out enzymes to break down protein. It's trying to put enzymes to break down the starch. And the net result kind of neutralizes itself. So when you have a really big meal with a starch and a protein, sometimes people go, oh, doc, I was tossing and turning all night. I go, what'd you eat last night? And they're like, Nana's meatballs and lasagna. And I'm like, that's why you had combining foods. The Eastern cultures do this where they don't mix their starches with their proteins. And it's really, really healthy for you to consider doing that from time to time. I always tell people, regardless, I always eat organic. It's worth it. Okay? Think well. There's 3 things that cause disease and sickness in the body. Thoughts, traumas, and toxins. This one's probably the most overlooked category of health. 90% of your thoughts today are the exact same thoughts you had yesterday. I think about this all the time. I get stuck in like a glitch and I'm like on repeat. And I'm like, oh, duh, I forgot the principle or the law of 90% of our thoughts. Guess who's not having the same thoughts every day? Her. I just like follow her around and I try to turn my phone off sometimes, my computer, and put it away. My mom taught me this. She's like, just exist with your kid in their world and see what they teach you. This little brain right here is buzzing so fast. Like every day is new thoughts. But then we get stuck in this cycle where it's the same stuff every day. We do the same job. We sit in the same car. We have the same emotions, the same thought processes, and they become sick and toxic to us. So I've worked with some patients where I've actually sat them down and I say, look, Mrs. Jones, you're not progressing the way that I thought you were going to progress. There's a blockage going on. And I know that it's not a nervous system block structurally because we're clearing out your subluxations. We've been working together for 5-6 months. Just had this conversation last week. There's a block going on. I say, there's something going on with your emotional state. I don't know what it is, and I'm not your psychologist, but there's an emotional block in your system that's not allowing your body to have its breakthrough. And almost every time my gut tells me that that's going on, it's this moment where it's just like, oh, and then it just comes out because I'm not like a pro or expert at this. It's like, you know this too, where you meet someone, you're like, oh, they're emotionally sick or taxed. Okay? And this emotional block is extremely toxic. So here's what I teach my patients to do. Your thoughts are your vibrations. Okay? We can now measure thoughts on a vibratory level. Thoughts are so real, we can measure them. People go, oh, it's in my head. I go, if it's in your head, it's everywhere. If it's in your head, it's in all cells of your body. So your thoughts are vibrations. There's healing techniques where you can actually think your way into a healing miracle. Okay? Louise Hay, she owns Hay House Radio. You can download the app and listen to her healing radio every day. She healed herself from stage 3 cervical cancer by only training her brain to communicate and send vibrational healing messages to her body. And she healed, and she wrote a book. Okay, Louise Hay House, or Louise Hay. She's an amazing woman. Her book is incredible too. So your thoughts are either toxic or your thoughts are healing, all day, every day. Okay, pray, meditate, whatever floats your boat, but we have to incorporate this every single day into our lives because our world is sick and toxic. Okay, and there's no easy way around it. I teach people breathing techniques. I just taught this to someone today. I said, your homework for the next 12 months is to master diaphragmatic breathing. Okay, most of us breathe with our shoulders and our chest, and I teach people, breathe with your belly. Breathe like a baby. If you put a baby down on a table, their belly, every time they take a breath, it goes like this. And we forget how to breathe like that because of stress, anxiety, gravity, all of these things. So I teach my patients, breathe like a baby. Breathe with your belly, not with your chest. Every single day before I go home, I could have the most crazy, stressful day in the office. As I pull into my driveway, I do this breathing technique. Whatever's going on inside of my body, it literally is like magic. It just dissolves and goes away. If I have a stressful meeting, I have to meet with someone, I'm like nervous about it, or if I have all this anxiety about a big event, stop what I'm doing and I do the diaphragmatic breathing, sometimes for a whole minute, sometimes for 3-4 minutes, and I'm not even joking, it's literally like magic. It just, everything melts away because you're taking all that stress off of your system and you're breathing the way that your body's designed to. Every day when I wake up, I do what's called a gas drill. So I might have mine in my pocket today. Nope, dry cleaning. I have note cards. Deanna sees them. They're all over the place. Sometimes you'll see me, I'll have a note card in my pocket. Sometimes they're bright green. On that card, I do my gas drill. I write a G, an A, and an S in order, and I write as many things that I can think of that I'm grateful for on it. And then I go to the A, and I write down one thing that I want to accomplish for the day. And I try to only write one because I get stressed out if I try to do too many things in one day. So as many things as I can think of that I'm grateful for, one action for the day, and then the S is a service. I try to do at least one good thing for someone else every day. Okay? And I do this every single day, and they're literally laying all over my truck, they're all over my desk, they're going through the wash, they're everywhere, because it's just reminding me that I start my day off with what I'm grateful for, one action step and one service to do for someone else. And I guarantee if the day ends and I didn't get my action done, that's all I'm thinking about. So I just try to stop what I do and just do it. Okay? And remember, 90% of your thoughts today are the same ones yesterday. How do you do that? How do you change that? We got to have different thoughts. You have to force yourself to have different thoughts so that tomorrow your thoughts become new. There's amazing books that are written about that. This is not my own. I get this stuff from other people and just incorporate it in my lives and share it with you guys. You have to eat well, you have to think well, and you have to move well. And we have to do this every single day. Eat well, think well, move well. And here's the move well paradigm. I already told you. And that's why I started with this story. Okay? The medical doctors know this story. All right? Other people know this story. My patients know this story. Most of them have never heard this story when they first show up. And it's my job to help share this. So you cannot be healthy if your spine is sick. Okay? And science proves that to us. So I meet people lots of times out in the community and say, oh, what do you do? I say, I just talk to everyone. Oh, what are you doing? I'm a chiropractor. And they go, ooh. You should hear the reactions I get. Ooh. Or that doesn't work for me. Or I don't believe in that. Or, oh, my wife's been trying to get me to do that, but she does that and I do this. Or, I've heard so many incredible and wild things. Ooh, I knew someone who died when they went to a chiropractor. Okay? And I'm proud, I say it, because most people just don't know the story. You can't be healthy if you have a sick spine. You can't be healthy if you have a sick spine. That's why we get adjusted, and that's how we get movement into your spine to create and stimulate life to the cells, tissues, and organs in your body. If you've been with me for as long as you have, Steve, you've heard me say this probably a million times. Movement is life. If you're not moving, you're dying. Okay? You got to keep moving. Water that stops moving, everything dies in it. Okay? Air that stops blowing, stuff dies. The seasons recycle all the plants and the trees and the soil, and we need to do the same thing. We need to keep moving. And you guys may have heard this, sitting is the new what? Smoking. The longer you stop moving, the faster you're going to start dying. Okay? This is Dr. Ashley's quote. Well, I'm not a plant. People say all the time, she's like, I just want to move all the time. Plants are made to be rooted. I'm not made to be rooted. I'm supposed to be moving around and loving and living life. Movement is now known as the number one nutrient for your brain. Okay, neuroscientists published this about 4 years ago. He said, we now acknowledge and know that movement is the number one nutrient for your brain. So they're labeling movement as a nutrient. That's how powerful it is. If you've ever laid on the couch all day being hungover or just kind of tired and feeling lazy, at the end of the day, did you have more energy or less? Less every single time. And the reason is that along the spine are these fancy little cells. They're called mechanoreceptors. And the more they move, they charge your brain up like a battery. The more movement, the more energy, the more neural connections you have in your brain, and the more synapses fire in your brain. The more you move, the more your brain comes to life. The less you move, I volunteered a lot when I was younger at I always call it an old folks home, but it was basically, where people go to die. And there was not much moving going on there. The sickest people were the ones that weren't moving. The healthiest people were the ones that were, out there, hula hooping. Really, So the more you move, the more you live. And there's two types of exercises, aerobic and anaerobic. I tell people the one that burns fat the best is the type of exercise that doesn't get your heart rate going as fast. Okay? So the type of exercise that burns the most fat is the type of exercise you can do and still have a conversation. This is how I get people moving. I say, just move to the point where you don't have to kill yourself moving. Just get out there and start moving around. If you can have a conversation, you're going to go into fat burning mode. If you're pushing yourself really crazy like people do at the gym, they're burning sugars. Their body's dumping sugars to keep them going. It's the jog with a conversation that is going to get you into fat burning mode the fastest. Okay? So, here's my last little piece here. Your body is a house. Okay? I've been teaching this for years, and it really ties it together for people nicely. Your nervous system, your spine, your body is your house. It's the only house you're ever going to get. You could have the house go up for foreclosure. House could burn to the ground, and you can rebuild all that stuff. But when this starts to go the other way, you get in a bad situation. So this is the only house you're ever really going to get. It's where your soul lives, where your spirit lives. This is your house, not the structure that you go home and sleep in. Okay? And I've been teaching it like this. Your body is your house, and if the house goes up in flames, who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? The fire department every single time. Don't call your electrician. See where I'm going? Do not call your electrician. Do not call your friend who's a carpenter. You pick up the phone and you dial 911. And if you get out of the house fast enough, and if they respond quickly enough, they're going to save the house, or at least some of it. But in the process, they're going to show up with axes and fire hoses, and they're going to smash out your windows, they're going to kick your doors down, they're going to get the chainsaws and cut an opening, and they're going to go in there and they're going to drench everything in your house, and they're not going to care what gets wet. You see what I'm saying? They're not going to care about the artwork that has been a family heirloom. They're not going to care about your gun safe that has all your precious cool guns that have been inherited. They don't care. They're going to put the fire out at all costs. Okay? And if they put it out in time, they might save some of the house. They might not. Dr. Ashley's house burned to the ground right before I met her. I would say, I think she was just vulnerable when I met her. Literally burnt her house down. Her house got burned to the ground. She has a binder, I don't know, like this. This is the only thing she has from her childhood. And it's got some newspaper articles. It's all singed around the edges, some pictures of her childhood. That's it. Okay? So if the fire department gets there soon enough, they might save your house, but they might not. Okay? Then the next day, you come to look at your house, and you get there, and the house has been saved. Who are you going to call the next day?
Restoration.
You're going to call your buddy who's an electrician. You're going to call the restoration crew. You're going to call now the carpenters. All right? Now, compare this to your health. When you're having a crisis, when your body is on fire, who are you going to call?
Doctor.
You're going to go to the emergency room. Call the doctor. And if you get there fast enough, if I fall down with a heart attack, hopefully they'll save my life, but they will do whatever they can to save my life. They will cut my chest open. They will rip me in half. They will put stents in my body. They will put me on 10 different medications. You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. And they'll try to put you back together. And the next day, then who am I going to call? The carpenters, the electricians. You're going to call me. You're going to call a chiropractor. You get that? The paradigm has been flipped. Okay? We're using the medical intervention for chronic conditions. And they don't have tools in their tool belt to work with you for these long-term chronic conditions that become a result from eat well, think well, and move well. They have zero tools in their tool belt. So what they're going to do is they're going to throw at you the interventions like the fire hoses and the axes, and they're going to throw stuff at you that's going to hopefully maybe save your life. But if you have a chronic condition, it's not a life. It's not, you're going to die tomorrow or today. You're not falling over dead. And they're going to throw this stuff at you. And we keep calling them again and again and again, and they keep throwing axes and fire hoses at you. And they say, and I have these conversations, and I'm like, look, if you keep wetting the house down and spraying it down with fire, it can't catch on fire because it's sopping wet and soggy. Agree? So the medical system says, well, if we just keep giving them statins and we keep giving them blood pressure medications and we keep giving them all these medications, we're preventing a heart attack. And I say, yes, but the house is going to rot to the ground because you're spraying it down every day with water. And they go, yeah, but we're preventing it. And I say, yes, you are, and you can play that game all day long, but you're actually making the house more sick because you're spraying it down with stuff that is eventually going to be toxic to it. See where I'm going?
Yep.
That's why I call this talk Life as a House. Because we have to stop, look at our paradigm differently, and start asking different questions to get different results. Okay? And this is new for almost all of my patients. And that's why I'm happy that I got to have this class with both of you guys, because we just started together, and this is really a window to what's going to come for maybe the rest of our lives together. Okay? We have to ask different questions to get different results. And now coming back to this story, there's so many things in our lives that we say, if I only knew this sooner, my life would be different. And This story has been sung since 1921. And I say, why doesn't every single person in this town, why doesn't every person in this country know this story? It's because two reasons. Either the chiropractors are really bad at their job, which it could be. I know some chiropractors that aren't really passionate and good at their job. Just like anyone else, right? Or someone somewhere doesn't want you to know this story. Okay? If I knew this, like I do, and I was, owned a major television broadcasting station, I'd have this stuff out there for people. But there's not much vested interest in telling this story when this story makes billions and billions of dollars on you every single year. Okay? It's a paradigm change. And to end this, one of my greatest mentors, he said, in life, if you're lucky, you can change your paradigm once. And he said, think about religion. How many people actually can evolve to a point where they look at their religion differently, not because mom and dad raised me this way, but because I want to look at this and examine this from my own perspective and make my own decisions. That's really challenging and hard to do. Okay? So on average, if you're lucky, you get one paradigm change in life. People might say, after I had my midlife crisis, or after my wife passed, or after I lost my child, or after my first heart attack, everything changed. And I always beg of my patients, I say, don't wait for the crisis to have the paradigm change if you need one. Right? So, hey, you guys, welcome aboard.
Very nice.
Welcome aboard.